All right, from Northwest Arkansas, it's busy here. It's insanely busy in my individual life. I'm sure it's busy out there for you as well. Another surf report. We're not quite to the very end of October, but getting there, close to Halloween, close to another full moon. We're not going to see it in this next week. We're looking at Thursday to Wednesday, the 22nd to the 28th. Now, this surf report is a perfect follow-on to the last few weeks. So we had a rise, we had some inner power, then we had a kind of a hold back and kind of taking a breath. And then this week is about bam, pushing outward, pushing up, rising up. Maybe not rising up, that's not the right term here, but it's yang. It's an accumulation week, and how much you can accumulate is going to be up to you. And here's the delicate dance. I'm kind of getting ahead of myself, but just so you get an idea for what we're looking at this week, and this is more of the solution, because remember, we do two things here. We get you the main influence and then the main solution. And the solution is going to be basically conscientiously planning what it is you're going to do, and then going to do it without signing up for too much. All right. And it's an accumulation week. So what you put out, you're going to get back. Where do we begin? We probably need to look at the summary slide. Now, this one's weird, and I get that, but we have virtually the same outlay with the I-Ching, with great abundance, overlapping astrology. In other words, it's the same exact overlap that we saw last week, but with a different theme. Last week was Venus and the divine feminine. This week is Venus and more the finance kind of aspect of this, because astrology is looking at very, very Venus heavy. As you're going to see, there's a lot of trines to Venus, and one of those is Jupiter. Jupiter, again, very optimistic and expansive and outward and very positive. So you putting those together, and Jupiter can be sort of the finances as well. A little bit deeper and a little bit more towards wealth, but you have a very positive vibe there with the trine. Then you have Sun in Scorpio, Mercury and Venus going into Libra. That's an interesting thing that we're going to talk about. That's towards the end of the week, next Wednesday, or just late Tuesday. Okay, and so that's a direct overlap. The I-Ching says great abundance. That's exactly what the main parts of the astrology are looking. So what is up with the Dreambot? We're going to be looking at that first, but suffice it to say that the Dreambot, the collective unconscious, is identifying a little bit of programming because it's not in vibe with the rest of the stars. In other words, with the Dreambot, we get to identify when we're being programmed with maybe inappropriate stuff. And in this case, I think it's correct because it's not in sync with the rest of the energies. So with that, let's go ahead and talk about the Dreambot. And we're going to do that first, right after this intro. Alrighty, if this is your first time here, this can be a little bit confusing. We're basically just triangulating to see what the main influence is. And one of those is the collective unconscious. That's what Carl Jung postulated. And the world generally follows where the mind is. That's why throughout all of history, people have been vying for the mass mind. Anywhere from Hitler to the mass programmers and the advent of subconscious linguists and trying to program us subliminally. So anyway, this is how we do it. This is the collective dreams. And here we go. The red arrows from jumps and experimental, nervous. There's a couple things here. Escapism and nervous, scared, and jumping. And so it almost has a suicide sort of flavor to it. And so that's why I put those in red. It's like an escape, and it's like it's like an immense emotional suffering and then an escape, like jump. So to me, it feels like easy one. It feels like suicide, even though the word suicide never shows up in the run. And then ironically, the second meme here is in the blue arrows, and it's like the transient nature of life. And basically the theme is this: it comes and goes. Life comes and goes. And think back about the last slide, which is now in the lower corner of our screen. It's the period of accumulation. It's a transitory time. So in a way, half of the Dreambot got directly over the rest of it, which is a temporary period. And this is a period of accumulation, but the rest of the run is more like escapism. And, maybe another way to look at this Dreambot, it could be, maybe it is a suicide watch. After all, laptops are coming out, really disgusting emails are coming out. By the way, the number 2 word here is disgusting. And if you have seen the Dreambots in the past few days, which you can do that at nationaldreamcenter.com, the word weird is showing up a lot. So I'm expecting maybe some weird stuff to be initiated, to be revealed, and maybe a lot of people go jumping, kind of like Epstein, apparently, or they want us to believe that he committed suicide. We're probably going to be seeing some more of these come the next few weeks, or maybe even in this week. All right, let's go look at the astrology. I haven't had time to really digest all of this, so bear with me, but I'm going to try to keep it very simple because there's some main themes in this astrology that we really need to focus on. There's a ton of aspects that can be talked about, but again, we're not looking for all of the influences. We're looking for the main influence. All right, so here it is. We have 3 planets transiting into different signs, from the sun going into Scorpio and the Mercury and Venus going into Libra. That last part that I just mentioned, they're going in at the same time, as you can see here, and they're coming in from the opposite directions. So that's a really cool phenomenon. Wait until the very end of the astrology at the end of the week. I think it's fascinating. And it actually has to do with the overall meme, which is, accumulating wealth, if you will. It's the Venus returning home, basically. She rules Libra and Taurus. Both of those have to do with finance, the finer things more of Taurus, but Libra also in the mix there at a deeper level. It's more of how I show that, how I demonstrate that, how I let that be seen, kind of a thing in terms of beauty. Now, one thing to consider here is that Mercury in retrograde is going to be within 8 degrees of the sun the whole week. So we say that's combust. That means it's stronger. It's a stronger Mercury. It's a stronger mental stressors, if you will. There's a lot of pressure from the past, maybe. It's going to be coming up, and that's all week. It's a stronger sense in the combust, but as we get even closer to the sun, we call that cazimi, and then it's just kind of like it's too much. It's not useful. It's just all over the place. It's hazy. It's like mental fog in this case with Mercury. Communication might be difficult during the cazimi time frame. I'll help you and identify what day that'll be, but generally all week your mental aptitudes will just be strong. I'm not going to say better, just going to be a lot stronger. It's going to be more like a fire hose of mental thoughts, racing thoughts all week long. And here on Thursday, you can see what I mean. The theme here is Venus. She's towards the end of her fall in Virgo. Let me get this highlighter out so you can see it a lot better. She's got a quadruple trine on Thursday, and one of them is the moon. Jupiter's together, so your emotions and the positivity and the optimism of fortunate Jupiter is with a trine with the beautiful harmony, finance part of Venus, and it's a very easy energy. And again, the rest of this, it's worth mentioning at least once. The the triplets that we've been talking about for several months now, Jupiter, Pluto, and Saturn. This is the positive transformation of the status quo, and our emotions are in there. So in this is halfway through the day on Thursday, the 22nd, and it's a very emotionally driven, positive sensation, and it could be the majority of that like an accumulation type of thing. It's wealth. It's more of Jupiter and finance, money. That's the Venus aspect, and it's just easy energy. And then here, there's this sort of hard work mentality. So it's not just free money. That's not what this is. This is you get what you put out. That's Virgo. That's what you consciously plan out. And interestingly, when we do the sidereal, even though the zodiac's been shifted about 23 degrees, the solution in Libra is going to take us right back to Virgo. I know that sounds confusing. I'll explain all that later. So it looks like there's almost a T-square, but we avoid that because this is waning, that segmented line. That means that the energy is old and getting stale. You have a sort of a dreamy nature in the finance area, and kind of consciously thinking about what it is I want to do and get in return is going to be driven a lot by having to balance your Neptune, your psychic, your dreams, and fantasy. So it may not be all that accurate, but there's an opportunity with that, and it might turn into creativity when you include the opportunity of positive Jupiter and transformative Pluto. It's taking your inner power, like we talked about last week, and now it's manifesting that out into the world through your labor. That's Virgo, and making money from it. That's Venus. All right, so that's kind of the overall flavor. We got some other things to talk about. Look, the sun's in its last phase of Libra. So guess what? Sun goes into Scorpio right as we have our only transient. It's a very temporary T-square. So I would say the hardest day of this week, most challenging day, is going to be Friday the 23rd. This is energetically. And there's a trap, and the trap is the emotions. The emotions that just went through this positive transformation of the status quo now is emotionally kind of airy. That's Aquarius. It's an Aquarius moon, so kind of stepping back and being the observer. But that's sort of it's going to be a trap. It's like being indifferent, emotionally indifferent. That's actually a trap. So don't be too emotionally indifferent. In fact, the sun going into Scorpio is not going to let you be indifferent. So there might be a little conflict there, and that makes sense because it's squared off to your emotions. Basically, your emotions are distant in this day, which is very difficult because Scorpio is deeply passionate and emotional, but they're much deeper. Scorpio, ruled by Pluto, is going to be that inner sense, that deep inner stuff. So, like a different layer of emotions, if that exists, much deeper, much more historical. The Scorpio never forgets, sits in the dark recesses of places and hides. And so these emotions, even though we insist are not there, they're there, and the sun's going to maybe highlight some of those, but it's not like sun loves being in Scorpio, and then likewise Scorpions hate the sun, so it's a mutual relationship, and it's going to make things difficult for the ego. It's going to feel slow. It's going to feel more challenging. Scorpios might sometimes be the bigger complainers, so maybe you find yourself complaining, especially when it's the emotions that you feel too distant or not appropriate or irrational, that kind of thing. Again, though, the main energy I'd like you to focus on is that Venus right now in Virgo trine to our triplets down here. Yeah, temporary T-square, not going to last too long. The other side is change-oriented Uranus. And it's changing your thoughts too, because Mercury within 5 degrees now of the sun. strong thoughts. Scorpio thoughts, they're going to be passions. There maybe some vindictiveness might be coming in. So sort of some darker flair, maybe some inner, some passions that you didn't know were there. Maybe those start showing up. All right, so that's about it there. We get into the weekend. Mercury, remember, is in retrograde, moving towards the sun. Sun obviously never goes in retrograde, so they're going head to head. And they're within 3 degrees now. Still have Venus with her waning trines, but nice, easy energy. By the way, this is not the end of Venus and the special focus on Venus and the finance and the Jupiter positive expansiveness. That's not over. We're going to return to this here towards the end. But for now, today, the strongest energy probably is going to be ego. Ego's got probably throughout the weekend, the biggest energy felt is going to be strong thoughts, very opinionated thoughts, deep passions, maybe some vindictiveness, maybe blaming, but also the sun, the ego, maybe feels maybe not being seen and hidden, and especially when you're having to balance some big changes and drastic changes in the material world. But what is Taurus also? Taurus, incidentally, is also ruled by Venus and controls finance, but the finer things. It's the experiencing the finer. It's like experiencing the wealth. But this is what you consider important to you, or what you consider to be of value. And because Uranus is there, that sense or those opinions might change. You might have a sudden change of what you like or what you think you like. Okay. Not only does Sun change its sign, but it's also having an opposition with Uranus. So who knows where that change is coming from. And then Sunday is where the Mercury and the Sun are getting within just a few minutes, I can't remember now, 17 minutes. It's real close. And that's Cazimi. And that's where it's too much for the planet Mercury. And so thought's going to be really unreliable here. And squared off to Saturn, that's going to look like pressure to do things and I should have done. But, now you're starting to think about what I should be doing, and you can't really make it out because you can't really think all that clearly now. Not only is Mercury not like being in the water and the emotions of Scorpio in the dark, he's in retrograde and he's Cazimi. So it's totally saturation. It's squared off to what I should be doing. So in this regard, this sounds like a day to take a break from the suggestion. So I know I haven't gotten to the solution yet, the overall week solution, but on Sunday, Mercury Cazimi, October 25th, I'm recommending that you take a break from what I'm going to call the solution that we talk about later. And that's going to be using your mind to really think about and plan out what you're going to be doing. This is probably a day, probably better to just relax and just be the observer and watch. The moon still in Aquarius and trine over to these. So your outlet to the trouble that's happening with Mercury and your ego, the outlet is your emotions, but it's an Aquarius emotions. So you can know they're there and they don't bother you. So actually being an observer to the emotions might be the best place today for this day, Sunday. And other than that, we're going to do the solution later, and then you can use that for the rest of the week. All right, so Mercury back to combust, so strengthened mind, extra maybe memories from the past helping you in deciding what's right for you, mentally ascertaining things such as your plan. Now, granted, the second half of this week, Mercury is going to be a square to Saturn, and Saturn, not only does Saturn show you obstacles, but he shows you how to get around them, how to solve these solutions. Well, that's squared off. So as you try to do that and try to mentally ascertain what it is Saturn's trying to do here, it's elusive. And the help that you're getting from Saturn is not really all that there. All you get is the bark from, a parent, like when you're a kid, you got to do this, and they don't tell you how to do it. But with Mercury in combust, there is some extra tools that you can use there, and that does follow the solution that we'll talk about later. So just hold on for that. Then Mercury gains some more squares. Now we're at Tuesday the 27th, and it's Pluto. It's the inner power. It's the transformation. Your mind is seeing conflict in those regards. And that's ironic, because whether or not I change, that's Pluto, or destroy and rebuild, Pluto, or if I keep everything the same, I still feel conflicted. So mind is going to be a little bit conflicted, but it's still useful. It's still strong, particularly when you compare and contrast from the past experiences. So it's about old learning that might come to play and help you in the last half of this week when you're using your logical brain. All right, now here is the very interesting aspect that speaks to our energy, our main energy for the week. So just a brief summary. Our main energy, remember, was the optimistic abundance. And what we started seeing at the beginning of the week is Venus with all of its trines, and emotionally charged Jupiter. So very, very emotionally positive and enthusiastic. That's definitely part of this accumulating wealth theme. But at the end of the week, going back to here's almost our last day. It's the night before. This is still Tuesday night, 8:44 p.m. Central Time. And almost looks like a T-square, but it's not. And look what we have. You have Venus, which is direct. It's going counterclockwise. And then Mercury is going in retrograde, so it's going clockwise. So they're going head to head as well. Well, they both hit the edges of Libra at the same time, or almost exactly the same time. It's uncanny. I've never seen anything like this. And so Libra gets all this attention. It paints both Venus and the strengthened, the heavy mental aptitude of Mercury, and your communication ability suddenly all turn very Libra. And Libra, again, we talked about last week, it's very justice, equilibrium, balance, harmony, peace. It's all your close relationships, your romance, that kind of thing. And then Venus being home is finally out of the discriminant Virgo. So Venus home to Libra, one of her homes. She rules Libra. She's satisfied. This is a very big change in energy for money, and which is representative of Venus as well. And so it opens it up. It opens it up to, hey, I deserve this money. I've been working hard. That's Virgo. I've been working hard. And now I deserve, that's the balance part of Libra, deserve the money. I deserve the wealth. And remember, I'm focusing on money, but this is your perceived sense of worth. Okay. So for most of you, maybe it's the ability to pay for screens, maybe pay for bills. I mean, I'm trying to do two things at once. But Venus with finance is feeling even more hopeful and even more at ease with her return to Libra, return to her home. Likewise, your mind, even though it's squared off to kind of the catch-22, what do I think about? The way things should be, or the way things are changing, the way things have always been, or the way things are transforming? It's kind of a catch-22, but that's conflicted. And Mercury as well, it's going to feel a drastically different air because, Libra is an air sign. Mercury is more of a Gemini, and so loves more of the air. It's a mental place, and so logic becomes a lot clearer there. So not only do you get a mental combust from the sun, still within 8 degrees, I believe, and it's in Libra, so it's becomes very much more rational. And then finally on Wednesday, you have that same thing. You've got the brackets here, and this optimism in Libra is kind of the manifestation of last week's report, which is just kind of take your breath. This is after rise up and work hard. Now we're in receiving mode, accumulation of wealth, probably from that period where we were working hard. All right. How are we doing on time? Gosh, I thought this was going to be a shorter one. All right. So let's take the highlighter off. In the I-Ching, we had 55. It's great abundance. We had thunder over fire. Great abundance comes into full flower when a group is unified and the power of its leadership is at its peak. It's like the sun at midday, a high noon of clarity, insight, and progress. That could be akin to Mercury in combust, but also all the other things that we talked about, the Venus trine Jupiter. So it's a natural cycle. This reading bodes well for raising of children and nurturing of a healthy family or any close-knit group. That's a very Libra thing, your closest relationships. To facilitate an experience of abundance, bring a mixture of energy and vision. The combination often comes from two people who are joining together in an effort, project, or relationship. That's Libra and Venus. So it's togetherness, but it's also in this week's meme is accumulation. All right, now let's get into the solution and let's just go ahead and get started. When we put in our change lines for the other I-Ching, you get 16, enthusiasm. So enthusiasm is not necessarily what you mean. It's not like you're a cheerleader. In fact, don't be a cheerleader this week. Now, again, we're getting into the solution. So this is the I-Ching's take on it. Here's how to behave according to the I-Ching this week. Enthusiasm unleashes enormous creative energy. That's good because we need to plan out, as you're going to see, we're going to need to plan out using Virgo, the ability to what it is we want to achieve. And we got to be very discriminate on how we do that. But the enthusiasm comes in because it's how we convince, I don't like that word convincing, but you're influencing other people with the inner passion that you have for whatever it is that you're doing, whether or not it be an idea or an activity. So you're not, with enthusiasm, you're not trying to take their hand and make them dance if they don't want to. It's you're going to go dance and have so much fun that they want to go dance. That's kind of the idea from the enthusiasm. To arouse others, redouble your dedication, and dare to create an environment that is free of tension. Take joy in your work. Take joy in your work. If you get nothing else from the I-Ching solution, it's this. Take joy from your work. So therefore, if you're picking jobs and work that is not joyful, or you can't generate joy in that activity, then be aware you're probably not going to get the return. You're not going to get the support from others. So it's a catch-22 if you're in a commitment that is not right for you. All right. Another part of our solution is we put the Tropical Astrology into the calculator. And what we're doing is we're focusing on Venus. Venus in Libra. And of course, Venus with its trine back in Virgo was important, but I think none as important as this snapshot right here. This is the Tuesday night, and Venus has just entered into Libra, or is about to run into Libra, and is home again. And I think that's where the biggest energy is going to be felt in terms of accumulating wealth or this accumulation phase. So where is Venus at this time? Well, it's right at the beginning of Libra, which falls at the very beginning of hexagram 46 in our Rave mandala, and then you see Virgo is on the sidereal solution. So what is 46? 46 is pushing upward. It's the I-Ching. Look at this. Good fortune that may be perceived as the result of serendipity, but derives from effort and dedication. Look at the overlaps here. This is the influence is also the solution. Good fortune. That's exactly the words from the original I-Ching. Remember, this is the Rave mandala right now. So the Rave mandala matches the I-Ching and says good fortune that may be perceived. So you're going to think once you receive your good fortune, whether it be in money or a job opportunity or some accolade or anything, any good fortune, you may be looking for the cause. And the cause is not just serendipity, but the weeks past, the effort that you put in. This is the time of reaping. This is the karmic period of accumulation, and then derives from effort and dedication. That's because we've been focusing on Virgo this whole time. Venus in Virgo. All right. So as you know, the I-Chings work with at the top. So it's the Venus is in the very first part of the Rave mandala hexagram 46. So that would be line 6, the wisdom to secure one's identity through careful consideration of the restrictive potential of commitments, the determination to say no to restrictive commitments. In a nutshell, you have to use integrity when you're signing up for projects. You can't be wasting your energy on projects that are too restrictive for you or not right for you. All right, and that's according to the Rave mandala. Next, let's get to the final slide. Hello. So October 22nd, the top part of here is the influence. And we have lots of accumulation. Yeah, I put money down, but money's not your only form of accumulation possible. Maybe you have more time. Maybe you have more energy. Maybe you have more followers on your social media kind of a thing. But just to make it simple, accumulation of wealth is kind of the focus here because Venus also represents finance, and Libra is also very supportive of that. So, period of accumulation, and what's due you, that's the Libra part. So here's the solution, and we're going to do the overlapping as well. First, we have the I-Ching 16, which is enthusiasm. Remember, it said bringing your joy from the inside. That's how you're going to influence others. Don't tell them what they need to do. They're going to do it because they're going to see you joyful doing it. Then the Rave mandala said pushing upward, but use integrity and make sure you're very mindful about what projects you sign up for and how you go about doing it. And this is going to directly help. The Sidereal Virgo, you can't really see that. There you go. The Sidereal Virgo says you need to be really discriminate on what you sign up for and how you plan this. Does that not sound exactly like the same? So the Rave mandala is exactly what Virgo is, the good side of Virgo, or the effective part of Virgo, which is discriminate, detailed, analytical. She's going to get helped with the combust Mercury. Hardworking, that's the Venus that's still in tropical Virgo for part of that week, or most of this week, and then responsible. All right, so here's how we put all this together. We look at the overlap of all of them, and then here's the, I guess I have to shrink it so I can bring it over enough so you can see it. Man, how about this? Hold on. I want you to be able to see it. It's just my software won't let it come over. Okay. So if you remember, for the past 3 weeks, I talked about this earlier, we had the rise. Then we had the Pluto, the inner power. Then just last week, we had the catch your breath. And this week, it's ready to push forward again, but probably further and outward and more optimistic and more joy than you've ever known in recent times. We're going to take the Virgo solution and we're going to say we need a lot of elbow grease, but we also need discriminate. We need to choose the right things for us. We need to plan impeccably before we start and then pour all your energy into it. But it's not just any work. It's very methodical and it has to produce joy. That's how you get even more effect from other people. You're influencing other people, get the help of them, and you multiply your efforts. And thus you get more accumulation. There's no need to force others to feel good. It's not cheerleading. It's carrying the banner of inner transcendent joy. The rave mandates integrity in your approach. We need pure intentions and discriminate on what action you carry out. It has to be in alignment with your inner authority. I put HD down here. That's human design. The beauty of human design is that it shows you, based on your birth chart, what inner authority you should be paying attention to. So you can use the Virgo and the Mercury if you want. That's the mind, that's rational choice. But human design says it's a little bit different than that. It's actually a lot different. You don't want to be in your head. That gives you mistakes. You need to follow your inner authority, whether it be the solar plexus, the spleen, or the sacral. You can get your free chart anywhere online. If you want help interpreting it, go to interzention.com, sign up for an appointment. I can walk you through your inner authority and how to, what to look for. And this isn't just your most important decisions. This isn't, should I buy this red car or buy the blue car? This should be in all things. Like, should I have this little pouch of peanuts right now? Is it right for my body? Your inner authority will tell you if that's right for you or not. And follow that. You can't go wrong. So also this week, avoid being too hard on yourself. Avoid being too stubborn. Don't be people pleasing. That's the big red flag of the rave, is that you're going to end up people pleasing and then you're going to resent them. So don't do that. That people pleasing comes from the Virgo solution. And don't be perfectionistic. Virgo can tend to be OCD and perfectionistic. So watch out for that as well when you're trying to carry this out. And with that, this could be one of my longest ones. I thought it would be one of the shortest ones. So if you have questions, let me know. Have a great, very positive, optimistic, energetic week. And we'll see you next week for the October finale. Bye, everyone.